So something happened to me and my friends over this last weekend, and I have been ruminating about it for a couple days now, and just within the last 10 minutes, I have really identified what about this experience that has been really bothering me. So I'm going to do my best to tell the story as succinctly as possible, and then I'm going to explain what this little realization was. So, I am going out to a warehouse rave on Saturday night, and I know a friend of mine will probably be there. I'm not necessarily going to meet them there, but probably will definitely cross paths and hang out for a while, probably. And I know she's probably going to be inviting some of her friends as well. Some I've met, some I haven't. All good with me. I'm a socialite. I like yapping. I like meeting new people. All fine with me. So I get out to the rave, and I'm usually on time because I got nothing else to do, and it starts at 11:30, so it's not like I'm racing home from some other engagement or something. But I get there and having a good time, and not that I think I'm gonna accidentally dox them, but I don't want to use their full names just in case. But I'm gonna say my friend S brought her good friend H, whom I've met before, and her roommate, whom I haven't met before, D. And these three ladies show up, and we all, say hello. I introduce myself to D, vice versa. And basically, we're just kind of informally hanging out. Sometimes we're at this stage, sometimes we're at another stage, sometimes we're just hanging out drinking water and just talking. And at some point, we end up going upstairs to a apartment that sits above the warehouse, which is where the owner of the venue lives. And my friend S, she's sort of like a producer, promoter, logistical planner type person, so it's not weird for her to be up here at all. And have a couple of drinks, go back downstairs. They're all I'm not say they're all getting super drunk, but they're definitely having a bit of the drink, and so am I. And I had a bit, but I was not, I was of my faculties. And at some point during the night, I am dancing, and ahead of me is D, who's kind of dancing by herself, and some guy enters her space and starts dancing with her. And I am default very trusting of people, and I do not perceive anything wrong with this. In fact, Dee seems like she's kind of into it. She's like smiling and laughing with this guy. And I'm like, great, we love it. We love a king with some charm to him. And at some point, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, I end up on the other side of the stage. I don't know how the physical distance was made. And at some point, I see Dee approaching me through the crowd. And she says, hey, can you help me? This guy's kind of making me feel uncomfortable. Can I hang out with you? And it's like, of course you can. It would be my absolute pleasure. The very least I could do. And she explains that she thought he was kind of cute. They were vibing with each other a little bit. And he was inviting her out to maybe drinks later or out to his apartment later. And she was saying, I'm super drunk right now. I don't think I can consent, but you can have my Instagram. And apparently that wasn't enough, and he just kept pushing to do something later. And that's when she found a reason to leave and come and join me. And sure enough, like maybe 2 minutes later, this guy comes zooming through the crowd after finding her again, and he has this very weird, like, energy to him. And, he is going for her, and he says, oh my god, I found you. And then I just decide to introduce myself. I'm not gonna throw him against the wall or anything. He's not assaulting anybody, but I just immediately introduce myself. How do you know my friend D here, just making it known that I have some association with D, that she's not here by herself. Very abruptly, the conversation sort of stops. He has his phone in his hand, he's looking through Instagram or something, or messaging people, except he's not typing anything. And he's also not looking at me or the stage. He's kind of just staring off to the side. And then a minute and a half goes by, and I start to suspect, I think he must be waiting. I think he's waiting for me to leave or something, or to fuck off, and I don't, because, now I'm watching this guy. And I don't leave, and I think he gives up, and he looks to her one last time and says, hey, I'm about to leave, can I get a picture with you? And she says yes. So I'm like, okay, well, nothing necessarily wrong with that. And they take a photo, and then he leaves. And she's like, finally he's fucking gone. But he's only gone physically, because he immediately starts blowing up her phone, inviting her out to his place. So just completely ignoring her wishes to not be pursued so aggressively sexually in this way at this moment. At this point, there's like this weird feeling I get of just being observed. And it's a weird, uncomfortable feeling. I imagine this is what it feels like to be like a deer out in the forest or something. Just suddenly very keenly aware of people watching me and Dee, and not waiting necessarily, but kind of, I don't know. Predatory is too strong a word for it, but just feeling uncomfortable a little bit. Maybe 5-10 minutes goes by, and it's probably like 4:40 in the morning at this point. I'm very thirsty. I asked Dee if she's seen water anywhere, and she's like, oh, there's a water cooler back there, like 20 feet away. Fucking perfect. I leave, fill up a glass of water, and I turn around. This takes 10 seconds. I turn around, and some guy has swooped into the spot that I was in and is basically doing the exact same thing the last guy was doing. Kind of in her space, trying to engage with her. And again, I am a very trusting person. I don't necessarily immediately presume anything is too off. But just given the last interaction that we just had, I'm paying a little bit more attention to this. But at the beginning, it seems like there isn't anything wrong. I'm literally like right behind them, so whatever. It doesn't feel exactly right. And I think at some point, like, the rave itself finally ends. My friend S, who again is like a friend of the promoters or is partly an employee, I don't know the dynamic, approaches us and is like, hey, do you guys want to go upstairs and have a couple drinks? And Dee is immediately like, yes, please. The three of us are kind of ushered away. So here's a little editor's note that I remembered while editing this that I forgot to include in the video. The door to this upstairs apartment was locked for a second, and one of our friends had to go and get the key for this. And while we were waiting, Dee was so uncomfortable that she was actually crouching down and hiding behind me and S, just to indicate the level of discomfort that she was at for this. And once we get up there, she's like, oh my god, like, I can't believe that guy. And I say, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I thought he was really cute, and, I'd kind of noticed him earlier, and, was sort of glad that he approached me, and, again, he asked me what I was doing later, and I said, I don't think I can consent, but here's my contact info if you want to hang out another time. And again, that just not being a good enough answer for him, and he just kept pushing, saying all kinds of, like, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, like, would you, please come back to my apartment with me, all this weird shit. It's just fucking gross, but that's not necessarily where the story ends, because we're hanging out and drinking upstairs, and at some point, Dee decides to use the bathroom downstairs, because there's sort of a short line. There's like maybe 10, 15 people hanging out upstairs, the unofficial afters, we'll say, and who should she see down there but this guy who is waiting for her to reemerge for almost an hour and a half in basically the aftermath of a rave that has already concluded, just waiting for her to reappear, to presumably keep pushing. Luckily, she sees him before he sees her, and she just immediately shuts the door and goes back upstairs and then tells us all what happened. And that's more or less the end of that story, but the thing that I have been ruminating about and just recently identified what it is that is bothering me so much is, like, this video is like, I mean, obviously we love consent, right? But this video is not here to just plug consent and tell men to be better, because, like, that video's not going to be very useful. But specifically, it is that feeling I got of being observed. It has been a very long time that I have felt such a menacing attitude towards me from other men. And it wasn't until that second time that it was really apparent to me why. And it was just my sheer proximity to this woman. I was perceived as, a cock block or something, or my presence was an obstacle in some way to connect with this woman. And the only way in these men's minds to connect with this woman was just to wait for me to not be there and then make their move. And that's so weird when I think about it. There's so many minute little isms about that just feel weird. Like this idea of, first of all, it's a very beta move, if I can appropriate some language from these stupid dating podcasts or whatever. Like waiting for another man to leave so then you can like weasel in there. Like that's fucking beta shit, bro. Cut that out. That aside, the second thing, it just says so much about what men actually respect. And it's so sad because both of these men basically had it in the bag. She thought they were cute. She gave them her contact info, and not necessarily in the I'm feeling pressured, please get away from me kind of way. In a genuine, I can't consent right now, but I want to hang out with you another time kind of way. And that not being good enough. Just pushing. And the only reason they left is because we either physically removed ourselves or I was the obstacle. I was perceived to be the obstacle to anything else happening. And that's so weird. I just think that's fucking weird. Men, you need to explain this to me. Why you wouldn't just approach her with me being there. Like, what about another man? Like, I mean, if there's an assumption about maybe being partnered with this person, I can see that being an obstacle. But then why make your move when I leave if that's what you think? Isn't that fucking weird? That's some fucking weird shit that you're on. I just don't somebody fucking explain this to me. Because I don't like this feeling that I got. I don't like this sort of targeted negative energy towards me where I am no longer just a guy hanging out with his friends at a rave. I am like a fucking annoyance or a deterrent to getting your fucking nut off. Like, I think that says so much about the character of these guys that approached her, because had they just shooted their shot with either the rest of the group of friends around or just me being there, that would say so much about their honesty of their intention. You know what I mean? Like, if they had been able to just approach her despite who was around and be like, oh my god, I think you're so beautiful, presumably connect, and then leave after being gifted the contact info and given hope of a connection at some later date, that would be so much better, right? Because the alternative implies this sort of secret, gamey, almost like pouncing opportunist kind of feeling, which again is some real beta shit. Again, it's also just fucking weird, and I don't know if men understand how afraid of maybe I don't know, I'm going down this rabbit hole. Men are cock-blocking that they cannot cock-block themselves fast enough. It is so sad to watch, because so many men are their own worst fucking enemy. But for some reason, it's women that are getting all the flack for being like woke or feminist or whatever the fuck. And yet, it's actually other men that are perceived to be like the actual arbiters of what sort of behavior is acceptable. Does that make sense? Like, obviously women are taking a lot of flack for this, but for some reason my physical, literal presence was the only thing preventing anything else from happening. And then, of course, actually leaving the situation. So what is it? I think you guys gotta examine this. If you've ever found yourself intimidated to approach somebody because of another man being around or nearby that seemed to know who this woman was, think about that. I am sure what they were afraid of was maybe me and Dee had some kind of romantic partnership, and they were afraid of receiving some aggro from me for having the audacity to approach somebody that they thought that was beautiful or cute or whatever. But I think that's just more proof to my point that it's really the men that they fear. And the only way they feel comfortable trying to actualize on whatever desire they have is just to isolate and then get them to leave with them. Like, it's like their intentions are not honest enough that they would be willing to wear it on their sleeve out in the open. Little rat fucker dudes. So, anyway, there's not really a point to this video. I just had to get this out and process it and just get that out there. I have not felt like that. Hatred is too strong a word, but just becoming aware of those eyes on me and then just realizing that I was accidentally affecting a lot of men around me, and I am pretty convinced that there probably would have been more men that night out there doing their weird shit, because, again, I left for 10 fucking seconds and a man appeared, so had I not been dancing with them most of the night, probably would have been more. And I fucking know there would have been more, because Dee is actually a professional dancer, and also their outfit at a rave would not be, you know, unsightly or whatever, but to a fucking gooner brain dipshit, probably a pretty attractive outfit. But anyway, like, just... that's it. That's the point of the video. Man, do better. That is fucking unbelievable. If a beautiful dancer gives you her contact info and says, hit me up later, you say, yes, ma'am, and get the fuck out of there, dumbass. I just can't... God. Like... And I think about that second guy who was like maybe 21, 22, and I think about where I was mentally with my level of confidence, esteem at that time, and I just would have been fucking over the moon to get a dancer's number. And I just can't believe that wasn't enough in that moment. Like, they just couldn't fucking lock it in for 10 minutes to recognize the gift that they just been given. Man, you've disappointed me, you know. Shocker. But I had to say it. Anyway, do better. If you have any thoughts or similar experiences, I would appreciate hearing them. Especially if you are a man who relates to this feeling of being... disliked is not the right word, but... being made an obstacle for no reason by other men. I'm specifically very interested in what you have to say and if you relate to anything I've had to say. But that is it. That's my little late night rant. Sleep well, men do better, and fucking, I don't know. Get out of my face.